I'm Dylan4243, and this race we have Damage with me, who is sadly unable to run tonight's race.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm really disappointed that I'm not going to be able to race, but at least I'm here to spectate some wonderful racing.
Indeed, should be a good one today. Only 2 cars in LMP1, 3 cars in GTE. 3 cars in GT. Let me restart. 2 cars in LMP1, 3 cars in LMP2, and I believe Dale DCing already puts us down to 3 cars in GTE.
Yeah, once Warrior gets here, it should be 3 GTs.
Which Warrior could miss out on qualifying depending on how quickly he showers. So
just to go over it all for everybody, the points champions have been crowned
for the
sprint season, as there are no more sprint races left. And Dylan, you can go over the how the championship went down.
So, starting in the slowest class in the GTE Sprint Cup subdivision, Warrior edged out his teammate Koala, who we're following on my screen currently, by 4 points. Mind you, it was 25 points for a win, 18 points for second, 15 for third, 12 for fourth, and 10 for fifth, 8 for sixth, if applicable. So, Warrior ended up with 91 points, Koala with 87, then followed by the Corvettes with 80, Snipper Pig beating out Dale due to Dale's mid-season slump of him not starting due to personal reasons, which is completely understandable. Snipper finished the season with 80 points, and Dale finished the sprint season with 73. The Ferraris, also due to lack of participation, ended up 5th and 6th with 39 and 26 points respectively. In LMP2, Cone will take home the Sprint Cup with a handy 22-point lead over Intersport. 108 points to 86. The 11 LMP2 car had 45 points from the start of the season, 67 with 33, and then the 84 and 85 only made 1 race each, finishing with 12 points. LMP1 is where it gets very interesting. Starting from the bottom up, the number 6 Toyota only had 31 points, again due to lack of participation. Same with the number 7 Audi with 38 points. The number 2 Porsche had 66 points. Number 8 Audi, which is Damage's car, bringing it home in third with 73 points, so a podium in the championship for Damage.
Yay!
And then the number 5 Toyota of Daniel and the number 1 Porsche of Texas tied with 98 points. How we do the tiebreaker is the same way that a lot of series do theirs. Goes by the most amount of first place finishes. Texas had 3 wins to Daniel's 2 wins in the sprint races, giving the championship, the Sprint Cup championship win to Texas. As back to Algarve, we're getting our first times in, and Koala does a 140.0 damage.
Yeah, I mean, this season, this inaugural season has gone really well. I appreciate everybody racing, everybody watching. I especially appreciate Dylan for being here for every race, being a steward, commentating these races, even though he does fall asleep from time to time. Hopefully he won't fall asleep on me today. I should be able to keep him awake, as Guard is now coming across the line to go onto provisional pole for the Chevrolet in the Snipper Pig seat.
Yeah, Drive the Guard will be subbing for Snipper Pig. There will not be a points penalty, as he is running the 63, which is Snipper's number. Similar to what Connor Daly's doing in IndyCar. You can see Guard going all the way out to the track edge. Got to keep 2 tires on the red and white curbing for this race. Those are the track limits.
Yeah, I mean, that should be plenty of room for these drivers. Really, the only turns that they have to worry about is turn 1 and turn 4. If they're running wide anywhere else, like for example through here, if you run onto those curbs on the left-hand side, it's going to hurt you more than it helps you going into that braking zone for the most part. So it's usually better to stay away from those curbs, and the same thing coming through this section. I mean, you're never really getting close to the curbs except for on the inside and at the very exit if you're lucky. So, but overall, Algarve, Portimao, whatever you want to call it, beautiful facility, beautiful racetrack. Now we'll be hosting an F1 race, but first we have a WEC race to do.
Indeed, a lot of scheduling changes midway through the season, as IndyCar just announced to the teams on Thursday. Public announcement should be coming to spectators tomorrow that Mid-Ohio will be a doubleheader for the IndyCar season. I was unable to make the UDL IndyCar race last night due to a weird power outage. Story for another day, but very interesting to see all of the series' schedules changing constantly, including ours. Again, if you missed Sakito last week, Sakito was our last sprint race this year. So it is endurance races from here on out.
So to jump back into this GTE qualifying, Drive the Guard did improve his time from a 39.8 to a 39.478, as Koala has an outlap there in his Ford GT. SSJ Warrior, as we call him, is in the lobby now. He has around 2.5 minutes to set a lap, as well as Dale the Whale in the other Corvette, who has just now started a flying lap. So far, It's looking good for the Corvettes.
Corvettes should definitely like this course. A lot of medium speed flowing corners, as Koala runs very wide in the turn 5 hairpin. So he is right on par with his lap time. I don't think he gained anything from that, so let it go this time, but we are watching him just to be safe. He has been known for track limits issues earlier this year. He was on probation for a few races, but should be expecting low 39s, maybe a high 38, and if someone's absolutely flying, a high 38. Mid 38, maybe 38.6 if someone gets a perfect lap together. But I wouldn't be surprised to see the pole position in GTE be down 38.9, maybe a 38.8 range today.
So it looks like as Warrior just now crossed the start-finish line, he will only have this one flying lap to get it done. So he's going to have a one-shot qualifying effort here, like they trialed in Formula One for a while. As Koala comes across the line, he does not improve on his time, so he stays at a 140.041 in that Ford, starting his final flying lap. Goes a little wide in the first corner, but nothing too terrible.
Indeed. Warrior coming home late today. Has a lot of pressure on him. We saw Joseph Newgarden at the Indy GP go for a strategy very similar. Wait till the end of qualifying, wait for the track to be rubbered up, find a clear patch of air, and go for the one lap, one chance qualifying. However, Joseph Newgarden choked and it did not pay off for him. We'll see if Warrior can make it pay off for the Ford GT. Again, wants to kill.
As Dale comes in on his first flying lap of the session, goes a 39.0, great lap from the Corvette driver, and so provisionally it is a Chevrolet 1-2, Ford 3-4, but of course Warrior has not finished a lap yet. As who's the next to cross the line?
It will be Warrior, followed by Koala.
The Warrior coming around this fast sweeping right-hander now.
Checkered flag is
out.
out.
The pit straight. As you can see the prototypes going out of the pit lane in the background as Warrior comes across the line, does a 141.1.
Not the lap he wanted.
So he will stay in P4.
I know why that is not the lap he wanted. he accidentally qualified with full fuel, which will not help your lap time. So not the qualifying warrior wanted. Koala able to shave half a second off his time, but however will not improve his position. Dale the Whale, our provisional pole sitter, comes across to take the checkered and will be a... He does improve his time by 14 one-thousandths of a second. So might as well stay the same. Yes, it is.
Guard coming down the pitch straight now. See if he can improve, get a little closer to his teammate. No, he was 3/10 down. So Dale the Whale on pole position for Corvette, locking out a Corvette front row in GTE, almost like GTLM a couple of weeks ago.
Indeed. Now, you may be wondering why LMP2 and LMP1 cars are on track at the same time. Due to us only having a combined 5 cars on track at the moment, we figured we might as well combine qualifying and have them head out together. Which, if you notice, all 3 LMP2 cars are right in a group together, close enough to where there may be some drafting on this front straight here. Very, very long front straight here at Algarve. However, they need to be careful. This last corner, they do not want to get aero wash coming onto it.
Yeah, so it looks like it will be driver leading the pack in the LMP2 race to qualify, I guess is the best way to put it, with Intersport in the middle of the sandwich and Cone Dodger tailing them in the LMP2 field. Texas was the first car out, so he has plenty of clean air. Daniel was the last car on track. He's going to have to really hope that he doesn't catch the back of these LMP2 cars towards the end of this lap, or else that could mean disaster for this qualifying lap in particular.
He should be good for the first lap. However, if he does multiple laps, which the Toyotas are known to do, however, I don't know if he is doing it this session because he only has 4 liters. The LMP2 cars will definitely do multiple laps, as they have well over 10 liters in every car when they first came out.
So Texas obviously not doing multiple laps, only has 2 liters left in the tank as he comes flying around that final corner. Up the hill, now down the pit straight. See what kind of a time he can put in for Daniel to aim for. It's a 24-0. Pretty good lap from Texas there, as Daniel has caught right up to the back of these LMP2s. And it's going to be tight on whether... I don't think it'll affect him any. If anything, it might help him a bit having this slipstream. Yeah, he might be
able to use that draft on the front straight, and that's exactly what he's doing.
And if he's going for multiple laps, so this could mean disaster for him. And he does go back to the pit lane as Texas comes out of the pits in front of the P3.
Cone goes for a Hail Mary on Intersport into turn 1, makes contact, and both cars do a half spin. That is not what either of those drivers wanted in qualifying.
You know, you always hear the term, they race harder in practice than they are in the race. Well, that's exactly what they're doing right now. It's very odd seeing a collision like that happen in qualifying, but they're twins, so, you know, it's pretty typical for them. In the LMP2 field, by the way, X-Driver currently on provisional pole position, Cone Dodger provisionally in P2, and Intersport in P3. So Cone might have gotten held up a little bit there by Intersport and figured he might as well just try to get by somehow. But hopefully that didn't mess up their qualifying session too much. In terms of, I mean, I don't know if they have damage or not. They collided, so
I would imagine if they had damage, they would have immediately returned to pit lane. That way they could have a couple clean laps, maybe take some fuel out of the car. I mean, with these LMP2 cars, they're so light, they like to get a couple laps on the tire to warm them up and wear them in, similar to what we see in IMSA qualifying.
Yeah, and that's the big issue with these guys in these LMP2 cars. You know, we see it all the time. They just go out and circulate for the entire 10-minute qualifying session, because the more they run, the better their tires get on the car. And so it just makes the car easier and easier to drive as the fuel winds down and as the tires get more into their working range. So even if they have maybe 1 or 2 damage to their suspension or their aero, they might still just stay out and continue circulating, because they might lose more time pitting and trying to warm up their tires again.
However, what this might do is this might just give pole to driver who's half a second up on his time. So we will see the 32s in LMP2 as Daniel's down into the 23s in LMP1 and has provisional pole there still as he is sitting in pit lane, actually heading out to the track as we speak.
Texas coming around the final corner now, up the little hill, down the pit straight. Let's see if he can improve at least 1.5 tenths. He does. He improves 4.5 tenths, goes up into provisional pole position with a 123.6, almost 3 tenths faster than Daniel in
and
P2.
An LMP2 driver is on a flyer, almost 6 tenths up on his time through the Sector 2 split. However, Cone is on an even faster lap, was over a second up on his Sector 2 split, and will he jump to provisional pole? He will in LMP2 by a whopping 6 tenths of a second as Intersport jumps up to P2, beating out driver by under 1/10 of a second.
Yeah, the 2 Ligier cars very close in lap time here, and it looks like the Orca might have a little bit of an advantage in that middle sector compared to the 2 Ligiers with its high amount of maneuverability. The Orca should be a very good car for a track like Portimao. So Cone's smiling inside of that helmet, I'm sure, and he is another 10th and some change up across the first sector split, as Intersport is down on his best lap. As I believe Daniel is starting a flying lap now, and Texas, of course, is on an out lap, I'm pretty sure.
Driver is 3 tenths up on his time. Cone's matching his time, and Intersport is 2 tenths up on his time. So it's still going to be close between driver and Intersport here. However, it does not look like Cone is going to improve that much more in his time. These drivers look like they're going to get 2 more laps, which driver does not have enough fuel, so this will be driver's last competitive lap in this qualifying session. He cannot get pulled, but he does get past Intersport. Can Cone improve? He does not improve, loses it in the final sector, and Intersport will take back second place in LMP2, and he has enough fuel to do a couple more laps. So the question is,
Cone has spun in turn 2, so Cone will not be improving on his time anymore, and he is out of time to be able to make it back to the stripe. I think he might get lucky and make it back. It's going to be very close.
He's going to be under 5 seconds if he crosses the line. It's going to be so close for him to get another lap in. Intersport knows this now. He knows that he has 1.5 chances, 1.5 laps left in qualifying. What can he do? He's 2.5 tenths up on his time. That is not quite good enough for pole. He needs to find that much more time in the final sector as Daniel improves on his time down to a 23.420. Nice number.
Yeah, this battle for this LMP1H qualifying pole position is ruthless. These two are back and forth. In Texas right now, 2.5 tenths up on his best lap at the first sector split. Hopefully for him, driver will not be in his way here, but we'll see drivers most likely trying to get back into the to try to get another lap, and Texas loses a bunch of time there.
I hate to see
trying
that.
to get around driver, and he goes wide. He misses his braking point there, and that will be the end of Texas's pole. So let's see if Cone does get across. He does get across the line with 3 seconds to spare. So Cone Dodger will have one final lap. X-Driver will not be able to complete another lap, so he will be crossing the line And I'm kind of perplexed at driver not allowing Texas through there.
Yeah, I'm
as
kind of disappointed.
Daniel comes around the final corner.
I'm kind of disappointed to hear that.
And he will do a pit entry because, I mean, you know, driver had just came back out of the pit lane, and I understand he was trying to get back to the line to start another lap, but I mean, you know, you're not on a flying lap, and the car coming up behind you is.
Yeah.
So very disappointing for the Porsche #1 driver of Texas time, and that will definitely be something that the FIA will have to look into just a little bit.
Yeah, Stewart's likely going to talk with driver post-race and at least give a finger shaking to him.
Contador around 2.5 tenths down on his previous flying lap, so unless he pulls together something crazy in this final sector, I don't believe he will be able to beat Intersport to pole position. So Intersport, prior to this session, through all of practice, Contador was around half a second faster than both of the Ligier drivers, and with no miracles, and there was not a miracle out of Contador there, Intersport is on pole position for LMP2. So to run down the field, Daniel on pole position for the LMP hybrid division with Texas time coming home in P2. Intersport gets the pole position for LMP2 with Contador very close behind in second place, and driver around 7 tenths back from Intersport. Dale the Whale is the leading car in a front row lockout for Corvette with Drive the Guard MP2, Koala MP3, and Warrior MP4 in his only flying lap. Now we have 2 minutes until the fame.
So again, your starting lineup is Toyota and Porsche on the front row, the only two LMP1 cars. In LMP2, Intersport in a Ligier, Kona in the Orca in the middle of the Ligier sandwich with driver rounding out the field. And then in GTE, it's going to be the classic American fight of Ford versus Chevy. Chevy won the front row in qualifying. What can Ford do in the race? Can they fight back? Being a 2.5-hour race, Damage, how many stops in an LMP1 car do you think this would be?
The LMP1 stints range anywhere from 40 to 50 minutes, depending on the car. The Audis around 40 minutes. And the Toyotas can stretch around 50 to 55 minutes. This should be around a 2-stop race for those LMP1 cars, and probably about the same for LMP2. GTE, they could stretch a 1-stop if they fuel save like nobody's business, but I believe it should be a 2-stop for them as well.
Yeah, GTE, it's probably going to be a stop and a splash. The question is do you take tires on the second stop? Because tires and fuel are not done at the same time in GTE. So that will be a factor. As I remember the race I did in the previous WEC championship with a different league, I gambled on not taking tires, and if I recall correctly, it did pay off as the pace lap is underway.
So a throwback to a race that was held around Portimao a few months ago, where we raced LMP2s and LMP2, LMP3, and GTE. The winner of that LMP2 race did not take tires for the entire race, and it was a 2.5-hour race. So they can go the whole race without taking tires, and at least LMP2. LMP1 probably not, just because of the hybrid deployment and the wheel spin they get from that. GTE, I'm not sure about. I don't know how light on the tires those cars will be.
The problem is in GTE is, again, the LMP2 cars are so light they can handle these medium speed corners and just float through them. the GTE cars, the heavy braking, and especially the turn 3, turn 4 complex is very difficult for them with low downforce. So we scrub a lot of our tires through there. I think you're going to have to change your tires at least once this race. The question is, do you change your tires twice?
Now, here's the real question. So we know in real life this isn't possible to do, and it's highly illegal. But this isn't real life. This is a racing simulation, and I wonder if any drivers are running anything but hards all the way around. There are certain tracks, this being one of them, that are either right-hand dominant or left-hand dominant, and this track is very right-hand dominant with all of its fast corners being right-hand corners. So you can actually run soft slicks on the right-hand side and not have any consequence from it. I wonder if anybody's going to be coming in with a crazy strategy like that.
They might be. I mean, usually as a driver and a tuner usually using my own setups, I always use symmetrical setups. As we see Dan pumping its brakes, making sure he has full hybrid, gets ready to come to the green. Again, split starts here. Field split nicely. And the lights are out for LMP1. Dan takes the lead into turn 1, and they are clean through there. And LMP2 Intersport gets the jump. Cone still in the Ligier sandwich. And GTE, they're just now taking the green. And also a clean start from them. It looks like Koala might have a jump on Drive the Guard, as the entire GTE field runs wide through turn 1. And I was correct. Koala did have the jump on Guard, as Guard ran very wide in turn 1.
So Koala with a good start there for the number 69 Ford. Gets ahead and splits the two Corvettes, and Warrior already looking to the inside of Drive the Guard in the hairpin as they are side by side now coming up the hill towards this double right-hander. And it looks like they're still side by side, but Guard relinquishes to the position. 2.5 hour race. He's not going to fight that hard from the very beginning.
Another thing Guard might be dealing with, again, Guard subbing for Snipper. Snipper in the overall championship is 85 points behind Warrior, so, I mean, the 63 team would love to catch Warrior, but his main goal is to stay ahead of the 69 team, as regardless of what position, if the 69 car wins this race, he will leapfrog the 63 in points. So it's Corvette's priority is to keep the 69 out of first place this race and make sure he doesn't win. Only 11 points separate those two in the championship. The gap between first and second in this race is 14.
It looks like Warrior going defensive into turn 1. Drive the Guard having a little bit of a look on the Ford driver, as Warrior has a bad run there. They get a little bit of a touch there going through that right-hander, but it looks like Warrior might hold on to it as he'll have the inside for turn 4, and it is very difficult to go side-by-side through here, but he runs very wide as he had a terrible line going into the entrance there. So these two drivers might be battling it out just a little bit longer.
Yeah, indeed. The 63 definitely gave a little bit of a hit check to the 67, and then which is a little bit of a no-no, but the 67 had his own no-no of running very wide through turn 4. Again, the car gets very light over the crest in that corner. In the prototype cars, you have the downforce sucking you down to the track, and you can keep it floored easily, almost on any line in there. These GT cars, don't get me wrong, they have downforce. It's just not that much as Guard looks up the inside into the final sector.
And as these three, as Koala is the leader of the quote trolley train, it's giving Dale a little bit of room out front to try to get away. Koala goes deep into that hairpin, has to go defensive on Warrior behind him, and this will just allow Dale to squeak farther and farther away in the front of this GTE field. Look at that shot as they come over the top of that crest.
Indeed, and in LMP1, it's still close as Texas is still within a second of Daniel.
I advise you go to GTE right now. They are 3 wide into turn 1. Koala backs out of it. Warrior goes very wide in turn 1. And
Guard's backwards.
And it looks like Guard has spun on the inside. So Guard has spun. Warrior goes insanely wide there and holds on to the position. But now Warrior or Koala gets back around. So I did not quite have the angle on Guard. What happened with Guard?
I did not either. I switched to Warrior running wide. So that definitely will be the 63 and the 69 under post-race review to find out what happened there and make sure there was not contact.
This battle for the lead of LMP1 is very, very spicy. These two are giving it everything they have right now, Texas trying to keep up with Daniel. Daniel trying to pull away from Texas. Texas around a 10th faster than Daniel last lap. Daniel with a little bit of a bobble as they come into this middle sector. Daniel should be able to pull a bit of a gap onto Texas through here as he's going to have a whole lot of aero wash.
Yeah, to quote the great John Doonan, it only takes 2 cars to have a race.
Koala's in the gravel in the hairpin, the same place he made that mistake last lap, and he is in the gravel. And so now he falls down into P4 in the GTE field, and he might have damage.
He definitely has damage after that incident. Both of his front headlights are out. He will be pitting this lap as his running lights on the rear are on, so severe damage to the front end of Koala's car.
And bad luck for Koala. Not quite sure what happened there. I just saw his dot not moving on the mini-map. I'm going to jump back to this fight for LMP1, though. They're within 2.5 tenths of each other. Daniel back and forth trying to break that slipstream of Texas behind. Both of them used up all of their hybrid deployment coming down into turn 1 as they both run just a little bit wide there on the other side of the curbing down into turn number 3. Daniel with a little bit of oversteer getting on that hybrid coming out of turn 3, and now over turn 4, Daniel a little bit wide coming out of there.
Indeed, if Daniel keeps it up, he might be under a track limits warning by the stewards, as that's the 4th time I believe I've seen him run wide. One more, and he will definitely be given a warning. So, definitely a close battle in LMP1 as they're beginning to catch lap traffic on lap 5. So it'll probably take about 6 full laps to catch traffic after this, as there was the split start to space the field out. And you can see both of them front wheel spinning as they come down the hill into Sector 3, getting on that hybrid deployment.
Yeah, Guard graciously gets out of the way of these two, battling it out. They're side by side coming into the penultimate corner as Texas loses the car a little bit. They're having to brake on the curbing. Great driving there from both of these guys to not make any sort of contact as during all of this, Koala did make it out of the pit lane. And so these two fighting for more than just the win in this race. These two are the main contenders for the LMPH title. As Texas runs deep into the first corner. He runs deep into the first corner. He has to avoid hitting the back of Daniel there. And that's why he went offline. So Texas maybe thought that Daniel would brake slightly earlier, or Texas missing his braking point in general. Runs a little bit wide there and loses around a second.
Daniel running wide again.
As they now come up onto the back of SSJ Warrior, who goes straight. Oh no! This might be the same malfunction that he had 2 weeks ago, as he goes straight in this section, and Drive the Guard will come around and take P2 away from the forward driver.
As his pit limiter is stuck on.
He's on his pit limiter. Some sort of wheel malfunctions here for sure, as it looks like he has regained control of his car, but very unfortunate for him. The same thing happened last time out in Sakito, but But hopefully he can get that sorted and figured out, as he almost spins again with all of that damage that he has.
Yeah, both Fords being stuck with severe damage. Looks like Corvettes, unless if they have issues of their own. Again, still 2 hours and 20 plus minutes to go. We're not even 10 minutes into this thing yet, and already have a lot of drama in GTE.
So Warrior, I very much assume, will be coming around this final corner and driving into the pit lane. He is going so much slower through that final corner.
And indeed
so
he does.
we'll have to keep an eye on Koala, see if Koala gets out in front of Warrior. And this will likely be a huge blow to Warrior's point standings here, as if this race continues like it is and he has to end up P3 or P4 with the 2 Corvettes out front, that'll be huge for those Corvette drivers, as Texas is right on the back of Daniel once again. Daniel might have made a mistake or something, but Texas right on that rear wing of the Toyota now, as they have caught the Ford of Koala coming through this final sector, as Daniel flashing his lights at the Ford, and now they both are released to fight it out. Texas right on that rear wing of Daniel as they come around this final corner.
And the question is do we see any team play happen within the Corvette camp? They're not known for this, but Texas, again, right on that rear wing of Daniel. But looking at the championship, as Warrior will come out just ahead of Koala. So a good intramural battle between the 2 Fords. Koala.
Texas sends one down the inside of turn 3, but not quite able to make it stick. So Daniel will hold on to it for now.
Indeed, coming down. You're fine. Coming down into turn 5. Out of turn 6, another slight passing opportunity here into turn 8 through the sweeper of 7. Texas not quite close enough to do anything. Up the hill, over the crest, back down into a flat-out sweeper of 9, and into the double apex turn 10. Again, another passing opportunity. Texas closes in under braking. No wheel spin by either of them as they get on the hybrid power down into 11, into 12. Right on the back end of that Toyota.
And you can tell the difference in lines as Texas goes to the outside of the ultimate corner. He might try to get the switch back here, get on the hybrid nice and early, try to get a good run through this final corner. And you can just tell the difference of lines. Texas trying to set up Daniel to make some sort of an overtake, as the slipstream once again being broken as they come flying down into turn 1. Texas goes down to the inside, side by side. Porsche versus Toyota into turn 1, and Texas
can't make it stick. He runs wide.
And then Daniel stins it back down the inside. Texas didn't see him coming, turns in towards the apex, and they do make contact. So Daniel repasses Texas and gets the lead back. Incredible racing.
Texas has the run coming down into turn 5. Actually, might have just been different hybrid deployment there, as Daniel able to pull away mid-straight, which to me is hybrid deployment. But absolutely going tooth and nail between these 2 cars, and their fuel's not much different either. So unlike the Audi, these cars are pretty even on fuel. The FIA was not anti-Toyota or anti-Porsche, only anti-Audi when they made the regulations for 2016. So these two are...
Happy me.
These two are definitely going to have a fair race, tooth and nail to the checkered. Just got to hope that nothing happens.
Watch Texas through here. Texas is very good through that hairpin coming up towards the penultimate corner, and he usually has a better run than Daniel through there, as he is now in a prime opportunity to make an overtake happen once again, as Warrior has had another collision of some sort. He went back into the pit lane, so he's came back out now in last
Texas
position.
Is on the outside of Daniel. Daniel pushes him wide. Texas had no room. That is fair if Texas decides to pass. He does not, though. Being the gentleman driver he does, he wants to make it fair and square. Lifts off the throttle, falls back in behind Daniel as they catch Warrior.
as they now come down the hill towards turn number 5, the trickiest braking zone in my opinion on this track. They both run a bit wide there, maybe distracted by the Ford driver, or maybe distracted by all of the smoke pouring out of their ears in this battle. Incredible racing from these two.
Indeed, coming into this again. This third sector here, starting right at this final corner in Sector 2, you can see Texas get a little bit of wheel spin from the front wheels, deploying his 8 megajoules. The Toyota only has 6 megajoules of hybrid power. You can just see Texas is very deep into the corner, but tight exit lets him get on that power earlier, while Daniel running the more defensive line, a little bit tighter entry, defending the entrance, makes him sacrifice the exit a little bit more.
And this lap around, Daniel a little bit further ahead, so nothing quite there for Texas in terms of an overtaking opportunity into turn 1. He is right there on that rear diffuser of the Toyota, now coming through turn number 4 with the LMP2 of X driver right in front of him.
Speaking of LMP2, Intersport still has the lead over Cone. It's just under a second. However, these LMP1 cars are well under half a second at most times. So we will keep in touch. We are keeping an eye on the LMP2 battle, as the leaders will likely come up to it, and our GT3 leaders. So all 3 class leaders look like they're about to meet in about a lap and a half.
Yeah, this is it's always interesting whenever there's a battle going on and you catch traffic from a different class. It's always very interesting seeing how the drivers get through it. And Texas lost a bit of time onto Daniel getting around driver, but it's obviously made it back up. Texas with a ton of pace right now, but he's just stuck behind Daniel for now in that Toyota, but once again right on that rear wing.
Well, and once again, this is why Texas is currently in the lead. As Cone just got past Intersport.
Cone got by.
Intersport was bogged down by Drive the Guard in the final corner. Drive the Guard not doing anything wrong, I presume. That final corner is very sketchy for the GTE cars. We need the full track in order to be flat out. Drive is trying to catch his teammate, the class leader, who's almost a full sector ahead of him. However, Intersport did get bogged down by Cone in that final corner, and the lead has changed for the first time in LMP2 since the start of the race.
And those two have been pretty close for this race, for the entirety of this race. X driver dropping off the back of them just a little bit, around 9 seconds back from Intersport. But Cone was slowly catching up, and this is going to be very interesting here as they do somehow squeak past Intersport there. As Texas trying to be opportunistic, looks to the outside of Daniel. Wheel spin coming down that hill from the hybrid deployment. Now let's see what happens here with Cone Dodger. Let's see how they
strong part of the track,
as now they are still behind Cone coming through this right-hander, as now they both get on hybrid. And I thought they were going to be 3 wide there for just a second. As
almost were into the final corner,
runs
and Cone,
a bit wide.
Yeah, Cone had to get out of it just a little bit, coming into the final corner as he got pushed wide by the LMP1 cars in a tooth and nail battle for the lead. Texas, you can tell he's definitely thinking about the championship right here and not just the race win. He knows he's got 2 hours and 12 minutes to make this one pass. This is the only pass that matters. He knows he has the pace once he gets it done to pull away from Daniel. However, if he makes a desperate move and it backfires, he's going to be chasing Daniel the rest of the race, and especially if he gets damaged and Daniel gets away scot-clean, his race is pretty much done, and Daniel's going to get a 14-point swing in his direction, which, looking at the championship table, would not put Daniel in the lead. They are currently 26 points apart. However, with only endurance races left, Texas knows he can only lose 2 more races to Daniel, especially if it's just them for the rest of the championship, depending on how long your injury lasts. hopefully you're back in it soon. But if they finish in the top 2 positions for the rest of the season, then Texas can only lose 2 races. Actually, he can only lose 1 race.
As this is a very famous quote from the Radio Le Mans commentator John Heidenau. It might be a 24-hour race, but it's a 24-hour sprint race, and that is exactly what this 2.5-hour endurance race is for these two. I mean, they are absolutely pushing to the extent of these cars' capabilities.
Indeed.
Now through Portimao.
What we're going to see for this race is it's going to be 3 50-minute races broken up by pit stops. That's exactly what this is going to be.
Now, the interesting thing here is that Daniel will be able to go longer on fuel than Texas. That is a given. But if Texas pits before Daniel, has clean air, and is able to put in lap times faster than Daniel, because he is obviously faster with how much he is hounding down on the Toyota driver. So as Daniel makes a mistake and Texas comes through there, so Daniel has a little bit of a bobble there, I'm assuming getting on his hybrid deployment. It is, as his hybrid is a little bit trickier to use than the Porsche or Audi's hybrid deployment system. So Texas gets through there, and just as I was about to say, Texas might be able to undercut the Toyota. Texas gets it done through a mistake from the Toyota driver of Daniel.
Now, does Daniel have anything to fight back for Texas? Which, Damage, why don't you tell us about how the 2 different hybrid systems work in these cars?
So basically, the three LMP1 hybrid cars, the Audi, the Porsche, and the Toyota, all 3 have different amounts of hybrid deployment. So the Audi has the least quote amount of hybrid deployment at a single time. And correct me if I'm wrong. It's 4 megajoules.
It's 4 megajoules around a full circuit at Circuit de la Sarthe, and it's adjusted for each course, if I recall.
And Daniel is spun. Daniel is spun, so Daniel has now lost buckets in time here. So that will be very disappointing for that driver. But the biggest difference between the Audi and Porsche versus the Toyota is the Toyota has rear hybrid deployment, and so it makes it very difficult for the Toyota drivers to get on that hybrid mid-corner and on corner exit, especially in corners where the track falls away from them, like the one where he made his previous mistake where Texas got through. That is the huge, I would say, disadvantage that Toyota has compared to Audi and Porsche in terms of how their hybrid deploys, because it's not quite as easy, and you can't lean on it like you can the hybrid of the other 2 vehicles.
Yeah, indeed. The obviously all 3 cars, their internal combustion engine powers the rear wheels. However, the Toyota has all-wheel drive hybrid, meaning that it's still a majority of the power to the rear wheels, although the front does get a little bit. With the Porsche, the benefit of the Porsche hybrid system is it pulls the car out of the corner. You can just lay on that hybrid button, and you know you're going to have a car planted beneath you. However, we've seen
the same thing with the Audi.
Exactly. We've seen it a couple times in this race, though. The corner that Texas is in right now, when he gets on that hybrid, we've seen some wheel spin, which is power being lost because there's just too much power to get to the road. The Toyota, we have yet to see too much wheel spin from him when he gets on the power. However, we saw it cost him the lead when he got on it a little bit too early and lost the back end.
And now it has cost him around 8 seconds whenever he spun in the middle sector. Not quite sure what the cause of that was. He spun through a section of, I think he spun in the double right at the very beginning of the middle sector through the first right-hand kink, I believe. So
unlikely
probably
possibility.
just him getting onto the curbing on the outside.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. As if you look, actually drives the guard, almost did the same exact thing, goes to the inside to catch it. Great example of what I was just going to say. Dan, in his, I don't want to say desperateness, because both of our LMP1 cars, both of the LMP1 drivers are very cool, calm, and collective when the going gets tough. Daniel might have just gotten a little bit too much inside curve and it threw the back end out on him. And it looks like Guard's struggling a little bit with the oversteer in his car, as he almost had a half spin heading into the corner at the top of the hill.
His tires may be falling off on that Corvette at this stage of the race, which would be very interesting, but the track temp is 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Clear skies here in Portimao this weekend, so track temp is pretty boiling, and so those tires might be just fading away a little bit at a time.
Indeed, it's definitely going to be a long race for him if his tires are already overheating. However, he's just got to keep it calm. And one thing I was going to say before the LMP1 battle really heated up, it'll be interesting to see if there's any Corvette tactics if they get close to each other again. Should Dale the Whale have a spin or something and drive the guards able to catch up, Dale the Whale's more or less out of the championship hunt. However, especially if the 63 car can have a good Daytona and Le Mans where I guess double endurance points are on table. 100 points for first and only 72 points for second. If the 63 car can win both of those races, that would be a 56 point swing. Right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and those two races were meant to be the crown jewels of the championship. They were meant to be the ones that really decided everything. I mean, that's how it is at Le Mans in real life. You know, I mean, Le Mans, it's the most important of the race of the season, and it gets the points shelled out exactly the way that it should be.
Very similar to the Indy 500.
Yes, exactly. So just like an Indy car, and just like in real world WEC, or just like in IMSA with the Daytona 24, and does Sebring have extra points too? Or
actually, I don't think any IMSA rounds have extra points. However, the Endurance Cup does hand out more points at Daytona than the other events due to the length of it. Yeah.
So all of these series really like highlighting their crown jewel races, and we're doing the exact same thing. You know, Daytona, very historic racing circuit, and it hosts the Rolex 24 every single year, and that is one of the most popular endurance races. And multi-class endurance races of the year, and then of course Le Mans. I mean, that is the most important endurance race of the year for any car manufacturer to compete in.
Indeed. So, depending if the 63 can win both of those races, and the 67 finishes anywhere but second for either of those, the 63 can very well jump into the lead of this championship, especially with the 67 having a miserable race here. However, if the Corvettes have no team orders, which, I mean, the Corvette crew is kind of renowned for having no team orders. A great example, look at the 2017 24 Hours of Daytona. The 64 car, I guarantee you, Dale the Whale still wants second place in this championship. As Guard runs wide. Again, I think Guard just does not have the back end that he wants.
Yeah, and, you know, Guard, this is his favorite car. That Corvette C7R, that is his baby. We all know him as the GM lover. If it's not a GM-made product, then he doesn't like it. And this car is his absolute baby, and so he has a lot of miles on this thing. But as we are now seeing, I guess he didn't have too much time to do long runs, or was just not able to fix the car for his long run pace. His short run pace seemed pretty good, on par with his teammate Dale the Whale. But as the stint goes on, I mean, Guard right now the slowest GT out on track.
Indeed. Koala is only 35 seconds behind him. We're not even a fifth of the way into this race yet, coming up on the 2 hours remaining mark. But if Koala can keep up the pace, he will drive the Guard. So that's a story that we will need to follow. Warrior, however, is a full minute behind his teammate almost, and will unlikely be able to improve his position if the other three cars can keep it clean.
Yeah, and as we approach the pit window for the prototype divisions here, we're gonna, as got a little bit of traffic management there from Daniel. The strategy here is going to be very interesting from the LMP2 guys in particular, because of the difference in stint length for these drivers in terms of fuel. So I believe X driver has the most amount of fuel currently in his Ligier Honda, with Intersport having the least amount of fuel in his Ligier Judd, and Cone being pretty similar with X driver, most likely equal once driver gets to the same point of the racing circuit as Cone. But Intersport's going to have to pit very early, and just really he might actually have to go for an extra splash after his second stop,
again,
which would cost him a lot of time.
This is a 150-minute race, so to do a two-stop strategy, you need to make it another 20 minutes, which I don't see any LMP2 car doing. To make it a three-stop strategy, you need to make it another... We just passed the 31-minute mark, so 6.5 minutes, or approximately, that would be what, about 5 laps. So it'll be close whether Intersport has enough fuel to do that 4.5 to 5 lap mark.
Yeah, it's very intriguing. As I am pretty sure that that Cone Dodgers Orica is the most fuel efficient out of the three cars that we have here today in LMP2, and the Ligier Judd is by far the least efficient out of the three vehicles. So and then X driver's just, he's obviously close to Cone, but I think he's been fuel saving. I think he's trying to stretch this two-stop instead of having to convert to a three, and I'm just afraid that Intersport, he was pushing for a lot of that opening stint, and like right now he's up on his best lap time. He might end up over driving his car and using just too much fuel.
Possibly either that, or we know Jeff does quite a bit of testing. However, he's not necessarily against having a show and drive series like IndyCar. Jeff might just be running the number he exactly needs to. Again, 37.5 minutes is the goal he needs. He's only 4 minutes away from that.
I mean, it's going to be close.
I think he's hitting the exact number he needs to.
And I mean, obviously, time's going to go away with his pit stops. That's a given. Plus, he had the formation lap at the start of the race, so he should be okay here. But if X driver can stretch a two-stop, for example, onto the drivers in front of him, that's going to be a lot of time saved.
Definitely. However, It's going to be close. Again, two-step, you need to do 50 minutes. That would be an hour and 40 minutes remaining. That's a tall order for how much gas he has left. That is, what, 16 liters?
Yeah, right at
18.
Yeah, it says 18 liters on his dash now, and I believe that they're going through around 2 to 2.5 liters per lap, which means that he would roughly be able to do, I'd say, 7 laps, which would be
definitely not going to get him to that 50-minute mark.
Yeah, it would be close, but he might be trying to get a shorter stop or something at the very end of the race, and he is revving it out pretty far, about the same as the rest of these drivers out here. So he might not be saving fuel, but I fully expected him to have a lot more pace at this stage of the race than he does right now.
Definitely. I mean, LMP2 still pretty close. They're all almost within. They're almost all on the front straight at the same time. Definitely all within the same. What the gap between first to second now is 15 seconds, which isn't terrible after 35 minutes of running. Here's the question though: is Intersport doing any fuel saving right now in this fuel stint? Because if he is, Cone definitely has to be worried.
Well,
if Jeff hits his 37.5 minute mark, that means not only can he run more fuel because of the lack of a pace lap, if he pits at 37.5 minutes, that means his next stint only needs to be about 36 minutes. Because pit stops, I mean, including the pit delta, it's about 90 to 110 seconds here, depending what class you're in.
Yeah.
It is not a short pit delta.
And as well, I mean, also you have to think about it. I mean, maybe driver could also be trying to save his tires. Maybe not get tires in his pit stop. And maybe now, whenever Cone got past Intersport, he might have decided, okay, I'm not going to push as hard anymore. I'm going to save these tires so that I don't have to change them on my next pit stop. And then, because Cone Dodger, we all know he changes his tires every pit stop. That's just how his strategy works most of the time. So Intersport will know that in the back of his mind and might be thinking, if I save these tires now, I might be able to double stint them and jump back ahead of Cone in the pit period.
Indeed. Again, to take tires or not to take tires is the question.
To be or not to be. As two cars close together. It's looks like Dale is coming up to lap Koala. So that, I believe, will put Koala 1 lap down once Dale gets there. Dale around 6 to 7 tenths faster per lap than Koala currently. But Guard having an absolutely dreadful middle part of his stint here. Slowest car on track by a huge margin.
Indeed. Koala able to get that gap down. It was, what, 35 seconds? Now it's down to 25 to 24 now as Dale loses it coming out of turn 3. Right? Oh my goodness.
He drives straight into Texas. And Texas will definitely have to pit. That is a lot of damage. Daniel comes around, and that is at turn 4 as well. So both of those drivers are going to have to do an entire lap with a ton of damage. But Texas, very unfortunate for the Porsche driver.
And here comes Cone. Catches these damaged cars at a bad spot. Lost a little bit of time there. This is not what Texas needed at all. Thankfully, it is towards the end of a stint. We have passed the 37.5 minute mark. which means a 3-stop race, which is what we were... Can Daniel make it on 2? I think he might be able to.
What's the fuel window? I believe it's 50 minutes.
50 minutes, so that's correct? Another... I think Daniel can do another 11 minutes.
Daniel should be able to make it. So this is really going to cost Texas a lot. I mean, Texas, unless something happens to Daniel, Texas is basically solidified in P2.
Texas's only hope, to be honest, is to go flat out after this. Hope that by some miracle he can make it 55 minutes on a fuel stint going flat out qualifying pace, and hope that Daniel makes a couple mistakes throughout the rest of the race. Not what Daniel wanted at all. Gard has made his first pit stop 40 minutes into the race, and as a result,
is in the pit lane as well.
Intersport is in the pit lane due to lack of fuel. So Intersport definitely on a 3-stop strategy. I don't believe that driver or Cone will be able to do a 2-stop. They should be pitting in about 2, maybe 3 laps, probably 2. Texas has the fuel done, has his tires done, just waiting on damage, as Daniel is almost a full lap ahead now.
Yeah, I mean, Texas, I don't believe he'll be a lap behind as he does come out of the pit lane. He's around a minute behind, and I mean, Daniel's, it might be longer than that. The timing is absolutely dreadful. Daniel coming around onto the pit straight now, so it'll be pretty close to almost a full lap down for the Porsche driver, and you really have to feel for Texas here. Couldn't really do much else in that situation. Aimed for a gap and the gap closed, and yeah, that was a very, very hard hit for sure. And so Texas now will have to try to make something happen here, whether that's save fuel and hope that he can make it to the end, or push like hell and try to gain that minute back that he's lost.
So going off of their best lap times, if both Daniel and Texas run their best lap times for the rest of the race, 60. There's 108 minutes left in this race. Which means there's 77 laps. Equals 30 seconds. So if they both run their best lap delta, Texas is only going to gain 30 seconds. Now, if Texas can somehow do this race on 2 stops, if he can do 55-minute stints for the first stint and for his next 2 stints, if he can make it on 2, that might just be enough.
That might give him a shot.
However,
as, Colin flies into the pit lane here and is very much not speeding, so good on him. Continue, sorry.
No, you're fine, it's fine, because I just knocked Toad beside me over. I lost my train of thought. The LMP1 gaps. I don't know, it's... You feel for Texas because he's got to make up time, but at the same time, if he wants to make it on a 2-stop, he can't use that much fuel. I mean, it's just, he can't do qualifying pace if he wants to save that much fuel. So
he has to either go for one strategy or the other. He can't split it down the middle.
Exactly.
And there's no way he's going to be able to gain time on Daniel now while also saving fuel. I mean, that takes... I mean, if there's one driver that's skilled enough to be able to do it, it would be Texas, but I don't even think he could do that.
Yeah, no, and Texas, that last lap, he only gained 1/10 of a second on Daniel. So, you gotta feel for Texas.
Driver currently on 1.5 liters of fuel coming through the middle sector, now into the final sector. Gonna get slightly close on his fuel consumption here for the LMP2, but I'm sure he knows exactly what he's doing as it now hits 1 liter.
Speaking of LMP2, strategy has been played. Intersport did not take tires on his pit stop. As a result, he's about 15 to 20 seconds ahead of Cone. Interestingly enough, speaking of that crash, Dale has not pitted yet.
Huh.
That damage hit on his door, which is the strong point of the Project Cars 2 physics model. It hit him square in the side of the car, so he probably has some suspension damage and a little bit of aero. However, he lucked out. If it would have been the front or the rear, he would have had severe damage, forcing him to pit instantly. However, he could be going, and he spins it again as we talk about his damage. So he definitely has damage to that car, but he thinks it's worth staying out, as Koala is about 9/10 of a lap behind him, and Guard is almost a full lap behind him. However, Koala and Guard have both made a pit stop, as driver is in and out, as Intersport has passed him. Will he get out ahead of Cone? It will be close.
So it looks like the two Ligier drivers did not take tires, and Cone did, by the looks of it. So Cone will be on those fresh, hard slicks as driver overdrives turn 3 just a little bit there. So Cone will have those fresh, nice, warm slicks, and driver will be getting old slicks back up to temperature here. So Cone will have a very big pace advantage on driver here, at least for the first couple of laps, but likely for the rest of the stint. And I mean, it's a smart play by both of the Ligier drivers, as Cone right on the back. I mean, he has so much pace here. Looking to the inside, coming up into this double right-hander. They're side by side. Oh, they're so close coming through the right-hander. Driver goes wide there and succumbs to the pressure of Cone Dodger on those fresh slicks. So Cone moves himself back up into the P2 in that Orica, as driver just tried his best, but just did not quite have the mechanical grip to hold on to it there, and hold on to his position.
Indeed. You can see those fresh tires are definitely helping a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, Intersport has around a 10-second lead now on Cone Dodger, and but Cone was around half a second faster that last lap, so Cone should easily catch up to Intersport here, especially as the stint goes on.
That's the plan, but however, all Intersport needs to do is when they pit next time, they just need to make sure that the 47 car comes into pit lane right with the 83, and they will have done their job.
Yeah. And speaking of, driver has spun in the same corner that we've seen Daniel having issues in, and Dale, Dale spun in turn 4 or turn 3. Daniel spun in that double apex right, and that's exactly where driver spun. Most likely got on the curbing on the outside, upset the car during the braking, and pitched it around. So very unfortunate for him, as he was right on the rear of Cone still, but now Cone all alone now with a decent gap in front of him and a decent gap behind.
I just accidentally called the wrong car to pit lane. Drive-through penalty has been given to car number 64, Dale the Whale.
Yeah, so unfortunate for Dale, but
Oops,
you know,
and the driver has spun again into the wall.
And Dale has
heading to game chat real quick. Can you guys hear me?
You made the party public, but
oh yes, I did. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Drive-throughs for Dale. Sorry, driver, if my messages messed you up. Drive-through is for Dale, not for guard. Yes. Yes. What was... Alright. Okay. We just barely missed it off camera. Just wanted to clarify. Alright, heading back to party chat.
Of course, this lap as he comes through the pit lane. So it's around a 25-second penalty for a drive-through, more or less. A little bit more, a little bit less, whatever it may be. But, yeah, so that's around 25 to 30 seconds added on to his time. And while that's not quite as much time as Texas lost, that is the penalty that he has been given. And it's just. And so we'll see. You know, we'll see what happens. We'll see where he comes out after he makes his true pit stop. But looks like Koala might be in the lead of GTE after it's all said and done.
It's gonna be close.
Well, Guard is. I forgot about Guard already making a stop.
Guard has already made a stop and is on sequence. Koala is still a little bit off sequence. He may have to make a second pit stop for a splash. It'll be close for Koala on making one stop or two. Guard is good to go on one more stop. Dale will be in a very similar boat to Koala, actually, as they almost have the same fuel. Speaking to Koala and Guard real quick, while I hopped in game chat to clarify the penalty, the turn 1 incident where Warrior ran wide and Guard somehow ended up backwards. Guard, again, as we thought, the back end not behaving how Guard thought it would in testing, just lost it on his own directly in front of Koala. There was slight contact made, apparently. However, the contact was as a result of the collision, not the cause of the spin. Said that wrong. The contact was a result of the spin, not the cause of the spin.
So very, very unfortunate that went down as it did. But it's nice to see everybody come out of that 3 wide into turn 1 without any severe damage.
What this has done, once Dale makes his pit stop, the entire GTE field will be on the same lap momentarily. Dale has about 23 seconds over Koala. Koala has about, I would say, 15 to 20 seconds over Guard, as the timing of scoring is glitched this far into the race. And then Guard has about 30 seconds over Warrior. So once Dale pits, the GTE field, it's not going to be wheel to wheel, but it will close up after him pitting, as Dale the Whale just setting a personal best Sector 2 time.
And something else to look at here. Warrior still has 31 liters left in the tank. Because of his early pit stop for damage, he might be able to make it home with one more stop.
Koala's definitely going to be close on 20 liters. Guard is fine for one more stop. Dale will have to make 2, I presume. Dale's going to be very close on one more stop as Daniel's into the pits.
Daniel now, he made it 37 laps on fuel here on his very first stint.
Almost making it that
stint?
magical 55.
So great stint there from Daniel to get her done. That Toyota was some incredible fuel consumption. I mean, that thing just lasts forever.
The tires are done, waiting on the fuel.
Looks like fuel might be done too.
Wonder
He
if
might have a little bit of
damage.
engine damage or something.
Indeed.
As his engine temp, as he's sitting in the pit lane, is 238 degrees Fahrenheit. So he very well could have been, running hot and
you know what?
overheating that engine.
Texas is on the front straight. If Texas can make it on one more stop, folks, boy, do we have a race on our hands. Texas needs to make it another 40 minutes, which means he needs to use a liter a minute, just over a liter a minute. That's a tall order in LMP1, but if anyone can do it, it will be Texas, as he can see Daniel now, especially coming into this brake zone. As he looks down his A-pillar, he will definitely be able to see Daniel, so it is blood in the water for Texas now, as the gap is under 5 seconds.
It's now Daniel getting held up a little bit there by Intersport through that right-hand hairpin. No real way for him to get by there. Loses a bit of time. Texas only around 3 seconds behind. If Texas can get past Daniel here on track, that will be a huge morale boost for the Porsche driver. And then if he can pull away, more importantly, from the Toyota driver of Daniel, he might get pretty close, even if he does have to make another pit stop.
Here's the question: does he? Again, it's kind of that. Which bed has he already? Which grave has he already dug for himself? Is he in the fuel save strategy, or is he in the balls to the wall strategy? Because he was only hitting 170. Oh, and he spins it. Kept it off the wall. Keeps it pointing in a forward direction. Intersport does well to avoid, costing him a little bit of time back to Cone. Cone now into turn 2, into turn 3. Intersport only has about 10 seconds on him. If that, actually, it's probably only 5. But it looks like Texas is going with the balls to the wall strategy. So the question is, if he has to make a splash, can he get past Daniel, get that 20-second gap that he needs, plus however much fuel he needs? So 20 seconds plus fuel.
So you're saying a liter a minute, correct?
That is there. Okay, to make the magical 55 number, as Texas slightly goes off again, Texas has 43 minutes until he makes the 55-minute mark. Correction. He has 38 minutes. 42 liters in the car. So it's about a liter and a quarter a minute, or about 2 liters a lap.
He is using a liter a minute at an hour and 33 minutes remaining. He had 43 liters in the car. At an hour and 33 minutes remaining, he had 42 liters in the car. So he is using 1 liter a lap, or maybe just slightly above that. But he is well within that threshold of being able to make it to the end of this race. So this might be a 5-second gap between first and second. They might be racing for position here.
Which, props to the entire Porsche crew, and especially Texas. The fact that he came back, he lost probably, 15, 20 seconds on track, limping the car back home. Probably lost 30 to 40 seconds in the pits alone in damage, plus the regular service, plus pit delta. For him to hit this fuel number and be within 5 seconds of the leader is absolutely amazing.
And closing It was 5 seconds before. Now it's under 4. So, not sure if Daniel made some sort of a mistake or not, but Texas is absolutely flying right now.
Speaking of gaps closing, Cone is closing on Intersport. Cone has the Ford of Koala, the 69 with the yellow trim, to deal with, as Koala will stick to the inside, forcing Cone the long way around. That will cost Cone a couple tenths. And indeed, the gap has ballooned up to about 5.5 seconds. So our leads have closed up, as in GTE. Dale still has a sector and a half over Koala, as he's coming into the final corner of Sector 2 as Koala's entering Turn 1. You can see that Koala's dot on the minimap just now went from blue to white. So it's pretty much exactly half a lap as it goes back to blue.
And Dale only with 5.5 liters left here in the tank, so he's most likely going to be boxing either next lap or the lap after. So we will be seeing the Corvette in the pit lane once again, but this time for a regularly scheduled service and not a drive-through.
And don't forget, Dale has not pit other than his drive-through. So technically, if you look at the timing and scoring sheets, that will count as a pit stop. He has yet to actually pit since taking that damage. He still has damage on the car. So,
whoa.
It's going to be very interesting to see where he comes out. I think Koala's going to need to make an extra stop. He's only got 10 liters left in the car, so he can probably make it to the hour 20-minute mark, if that.
So Daniel has made a massive mistake. Texas is now within half a second once again of Daniel. So we got this battle part 2 here between the two LMP1 drivers. This is going to be incredible.
Which driver does not look like he has pitted for that damage after his spin and tapping the wall, as Texas slicing and dicing through the Ford GT of that looks like Warrior. It does not look like driver has pitted for that damage that he got while I was assigning the drive-through penalty. Apologies, driver, if you do see this, if that was a factor. However, he has dropped back to about 25 seconds behind the battle for the LMP2 lead. However, in LMP1, it's just like it was an hour ago.
Yeah, I mean, we might have lost around 30 minutes of this saga, but it's got multiple seasons and multiple episodes as Dale dives on into the pit lane. He does get it slowed down on the limiter, so Dale does not speed going into the pit lane.
And we will keep an eye on where Guard is on track. He's just now coming out of turn 5 through the kink of turn 6 into the double right of 7 and 8 in sector 2. So we will keep an eye on that to see when Dale's dot gets moving down pit lane and where Guard's dot is on track.
So now, this LMP1 battle between the Porsche and the Toyota has opened right up. These two are about to go into war once again. This is going to be fun.
So Dale is moving out of pit lane. His teammate is just now coming into the penultimate corner. However, Koala will get by.
Yeah. So Dale has now exited the pit lane as Guard is coming around the final corner. So Guard...
So it's the entire front straight.
Yeah, Guard with his spin and his balance issues towards the end of his last stint has lost a ton of time on his teammate.
Both of the Corvettes should be good with one stop left. Koala will likely need 2. A stop and a splash.
Texas flies past Daniel. Then he goes wide in turn 1, loses a bit of time, and he gives the position back. So Texas, once again, being a gentleman driver here, He used a lot of his hybrid on the pit straight to get past Daniel, and I assume just missed his braking point just a little bit and went wide, and decided that he wasn't going to benefit off of it, so he allowed Daniel right back through.
And one thing Texas knows, he knows he's going to pit before Daniel does. The question is, does he force the issue, or does he just bide his time, save some fuel right now, make sure he can get another 30 minutes out of his tank, which again, he's got 31 minutes to go. He's got 33 liters left in the tank, so he's running just slightly over that liter per minute mark that he needs to hit. So I can see him saving fuel right now, pitting, laying down some qualifying laps to undercut Daniel in the pit sequence, and coming out on top.
And that is exactly what I was talking about earlier. I mean, you know, Texas was going to be boxing before Daniel anyways in the first stint, and I was talking about him being able to undercut him with clean air, and it might be the same thing again, but on the same token, if Texas battles Daniel hard here, he can force Daniel into an error of some sort, and he might be able to force Daniel into losing a decent chunk of time, which would allow Texas, if he does have to make a final splash for fuel, be that good bit closer, or that enough, or be far enough ahead to where he does not lose the position or has a chance to get the first position away from Daniel. So there's two sides to the coin here for sure whenever it comes down to the Porsche driver's strategy.
And another thing to keep an eye on, Cone has blood in the water. He can see Intersport. Intersport's about two-thirds of the way through his stint, while Cone's only about halfway. Meanwhile, in LMP1, Daniel again taking that defensive line. The Scott Pruitt fade into the final corner, goes right on corner entrance, drifts left on just before he turns in for the corner, forcing Texas way out wide. Daniel not swerving, Texas anticipating the swerving to break the draft, and instead hops out of it. Texas again down the inside into turn one, brakes early enough to stay within the track limits, and will get the pass done.
So Texas back into the lead here. The first time he's really truly led for more than 5 seconds at a time. So now the Porsche driver out front. I mean, other than, whenever first time he's led for quite a while.
Since his incident with the Corvette.
Since his incident. And incredible job from him to get back into the lead, as Koala is now sitting in the pit lane.
And just like the last time when Texas took the lead, Daniel spins the car at turn 8. It's a carbon copy of the last time Texas took the lead. I wonder if Daniel's car is set up to run in clean air, and that aero wash that Texas puts on his car when he's following the Porsche, the Toyota just can't handle it.
Yeah, I mean, that Toyota, Daniel, throughout this entire season has talked about how twitchy of a car it is. And if something just isn't quite right, it could be very easy to lose that car. And he said finding the stability on that car is very tough sometimes. And it is showing here today. So Texas, that mistake that he needed from Daniel, he has now gotten. So now Texas has around a 5.5 second gap to Daniel, and he is probably going into fuel save mode here.
I would imagine so. He probably just wants to hold that gap, make the fuel he needs to.
Now,
and then make sure he has enough fuel to the end. Again, it's what we have 26.5 minutes now to his fuel number. Might as well say 27 minutes. He's got 28.5 liters. He needs to start saving fuel if he wants to hit that 55-minute mark.
Yeah, and I mean, by looking at his revs right now, I don't think he's saving very much fuel.
I don't either, which, if his strategists are telling look at that wheel spin. If his strategists are telling him he's good to go, then he's good to go. Koala has come in and come out from his possible final pit stop. Again, Koala needs to hit that liter per minute mark if he wants to finish the race without doing another stop. That's a tall order in a GTE car. An LMP1 car, especially the Toyota and Porsche, not so much the Audi, you just need to lift a little bit. It's not impossible. It's just slightly difficult. Pretty similar with the LMP2 cars. A liter per minute. A little bit more difficult than LMP1, but again, possible. GTE, that's some serious fuel saving. Warrior, however, has 8 liters left. Guard has 48, and Dale has 79. So it looks like every single car in GTE is at least going to need a splash.
I've been watching this battle for LMP2 for the last couple of laps. Intersport currently has 20 liters left in the tank, and Cone Dodger has roughly 30 liters left in the tank. So if Intersport can hold on to this track position that he has now until he comes to the pit lane, he lost around a half a second that lap to Cone. If he can hold on to this track position in front of Cone until he pits and comes back out and can set equal lap times or better lap times than Cone Dodger, he might have won himself this race off of strategy if Cone doesn't not take tires this stint. But Cone seems to have the most pace, obviously, with his fresher slicks. But that strategy call from Intersport to not take tires might just pay off here.
On a side note, a incident happened on my college campus today. A stabbing happened, an assault with a knife happened just off of campus, and the suspect ran onto campus. Police have him in custody due to tips that people on campus called in. So, to anyone watching this, hashtag see something, say something. Your police do appreciate any cooperation that you can have if something happens in your area. And thank you to all officers who would happen to watch this.
And all prayers out to the family of the victim, of course.
Indeed. Sounds like the victim was just robbed at knife point. Sounds like no injuries. So
that's good.
For Intersport, for his 3-stop strategy, he only needs to make it 3 minutes. With how much fuel he has left, he will easily be able to do that. Cone, to make it on a 2-stop strategy, needs to go another 23 minutes with 25 liters. Again, that liter per minute thing. In LMP2, it's a little bit more difficult than LMP1. Speaking of which, how's Texas doing? Texas has 22 minutes, 23.5 liters.
25 liters. Oh, never mind. It just updated. Okay, it was wrong. All right, 23.5. All right. So I believe Texas should be okay here.
He should be good.
And Daniel has lost it again at the top of the hill, going at the end of the middle sector. Daniel with a bit of a slide there. Lucky nobody was around, but we'll lose around 4 seconds with that mistake.
Texas, our leader, cutting his way through the LMP2 battle, catching them in a relatively good spot, passing Cone in the short chute between the penultimate and final corner, passing Intersport on the front straight, using that draft to accelerate him up to 186 miles an hour into turn 1. Runs a little bit wide through turn 1, carrying that excess speed from the draft, and is now catching his good friend of... That is not Dale, excuse me. That is Guard. We'll catch Dale this lap probably, though. And Warrior is in the pits. Gets it slowed down just in time. So, depending on how much fuel the Ford gets, I think it's around 85 to 90 liters. It will be close on whether Warrior could be the first person to make his final pit stop in this race.
Intersport gets around Guard going into this double right-hander. Colin has to go the long way around here, but somehow still gain time on Intersport through that corner, even though he had to take the long way around. So, not quite sure how that happened, but Colin really flying at this stage of the race.
Warrior taking a full 88 liters in the Ford EcoBoost Ford GT. Now waiting on tires, probably putting on hard tires for this long final stint. And he may be good to go. He is a lap and a full lap and a sector behind the leader. However, he should not have to pit again.
Speaking of good to go, Texas is now on the back of Dale. No excessive flashing or anything from the wonderful Porsche driver.
Intersport is also past his pit delta. He can pit anytime now, between now and when he runs out of fuel, and he will be good to go on one more pit stop after this one. So 2 stops left in the race for him. Cone not quite getting that liter per minute that he needs. He will need to do 2 more stops at this rate as Daniel comes up to this LMP2 battle. Nice and early on the brakes for Daniel that time. Did not want to spin out into Cone and affect this terrific battle that is shaping up in LMP2.
And we know the history between these two. Intersport, Colin Dodger, they're basically best friends. But whenever they're on the track, they are worst enemies. If there are 2 drivers that give the least amount of room that you could possibly give to each other, it would be those 2. If there are incidents,
if their car,
it happens between those 2.
I wouldn't say that necessarily. I mean, they're clean racers.
Incidents.
Yes, they are not afraid to bump. If their cars are 3 feet wide, they will give 3 feet and 1 inch of room. They will give room, but just enough room.
Yeah, and this rivalry between these two has escalated exponentially since this World Endurance Championship began, and these two have been head-to-head in this LMP2 championship for the most part, as Colin Dodger now all over the back of that red, white, and black Ligier Judd of Intersport. And this is going to shape up to be just as aggressive of a battle as the LMP1 battle was, I believe.
For sure, Daniel has dropped back to over 15 seconds behind as they pass the GTE leader of Dale, who lets them through very nicely. Stays nice and wide. No time gained or lost by either of the LMP2 drivers.
Intersport with surprisingly good pace on these old slicks. He is doing quite well to be holding off Cone for this long.
I think it's to the point to where Cone has officially lost the newness advantage of his tires, to where he's far enough into the stint to where it's a slight advantage, but to when he first came out of pit lane, it was half a second to even a second a lap, because Intersport was sliding around so much on his older tires. Now they're both slipping and sliding, as you see Cone run wide as evidence of that. The front end just not turning how he wants it to. So
Intersport's last lap of a 32.900 was 6/100ths slower than his best lap of the entire race. And he's at the very end of his second stint on a set of hards on a 136-degree track temp.
Yeah, over 100 degrees ambient here.
He is absolutely pushing to that car's maximum right now. To his maximum ability, for sure. He's only got 3.3 liters left, 3 liters-ish left. He should be able to make it one more lap. Coleman with a bit of a mistake there.
Looks like he locked up the rears possibly. Got on that outside curb heading into turn, what is that, 12?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6.
I believe that's turn 12. And Intersport is in the pits.
The Intersport will be making, he hopes, his final stop, but we know most likely not his final stop.
No, he's definitely doing a 3-stop strategy. And the question is, will he short fill the car a few liters and commit to the 3-stop strategy?
He could short fill it now, or he could be short filling it later. It could be either one of those strategies for him. Now taking his fuel, and looks like he might be doing, well, it's still taking fuel, I think. There he goes. So out of the pit lane, Intersport goes. Still looks like he will still be ahead of Driver, who is now coming through the penultimate corner now. So so Intersport looks like he'll hold on to P2 on track. Of course, we'll see what it comes out in net position. He will come out in close proximity with the Ford of Warrior, but Warrior will be right behind him. So thankfully for Jeff's sake, he won't have any traffic on his outlap here. Now, how fast can Cone Dodger go right now, and how fast can Intersport go right now?
That's the thing. Intersport's going to be pushing as hard as he can on... Honestly, that was kind of a short stop. He had to take tires, I'm assuming.
There's no way that with how hot this track is, there is no way he did not take tires. Now, is it this? Do they change left and right side at the same time in LMP2?
I believe
or they change
do.
one tire at a time.
I believe they do 2 tires at a time.
Okay. If it was 1 tire at a time, he might have done something cheeky and done left sides only, which would have been a master stroke of a strategy. But seeing as how they do right and left at the same time, I assume that he probably either took all 4 or didn't take any.
We'll see what happens when Cone pits, as it should be relatively soon. And to be honest, depending on whether Cone is afraid, how afraid Cone is of the undercut, which, considering Intersport pitted ahead of him, he may be trying to stick out and do the overcut.
So Cone just put in a 32.7. Absolutely blistering there from Cone, 2/10 faster than his previous lap. So Intersport now on his first flying lap out of the pit lane, and he goes a little bit deep into that turn number 5 hairpin. So Intersport pushing really hard here, but he has lost time so far throughout this lap.
Cone running a bit wide in turn 1. If he keeps it up, he will get a little bit of a slap on the wrist, let him know, hey, the stewards are watching you for track limits. As he runs very wide in turn 4. One more time and he will be sent a message. As he's pushing as hard as he can to stay ahead of Intersport. Again, looking at their championship battle, once again, it's a 16-point swing between first and second in the championship. The gap between first and second is Intersport 6 points over Cone. So whoever wins this race between Cone and Jeff will leave the race with the championship lead, heading into the Crown Jewel season, Crown Jewel part of the season, as as Daytona and Le Mans are coming up relatively soon on the schedule.
With Spa, of course, in between the two.
Yes.
So, we're coming up on 1 hour left in the session here. As a little bit of a recap, we'll run down the running order as it stands. Texas time, currently the leader in LMP1H in that Porsche 919, with Daniel 26 seconds back into Toyota TSO 50 Hybrid. So those are the only two LMP1 cars in the field. The leading LMP2 car currently, as he is due to stop either this lap or next, is Colin Dodger in that number 83 Orica Intersport, who just made his second pit stop, is in P2 in LMP2 with ex-driver in third position. Dale the Whale currently leading GTE for Corvette, leading a Corvette 1-2 with Drive the Guard in second place. And Cuddly Koala around a half a lap or a little more behind Drive the Guard in P3 in GTE, and Warrior another half a lap back from Koala. So GTE's field has strung out a little bit, but the battles in the other two divisions are most likely going to be incredibly close.
Cone stays out one more lap. Definitely will have to pit next lap. We'll be cutting it close on fuel, as checking back on driver, who is almost a lap down to his class leader after that spin and damage. Has a little bit more fuel than Cone. However, not enough to short stop. Drive will be the next GTE car to pit, as Koala runs very wide to avoid Texas through turn 1. Warriors should be good to the end, which means, where is he on track? He's heading into the third sector. Koala's coming into the second sector. Warrior might catch Koala, which, again, if Warriors are worried about his lead at all, they might play the championship strategy and let Koala pass let Warrior pass Koala. Said that backwards. However, if they're focusing on a Ford 1-2 instead of Ford winning the championship to begin with, if Warrior does get past Koala in the pit sequence, it could give Koala the position back. Again, team orders. It's not banned. It's just not encouraged, as Cone slows it down into the pit lane for second to last time, as he will not be able to make it to the end from here.
Yeah, you will have to do a small splash. Intersport now in the middle of the middle sector, coming up towards the double right-hander, up the hill, then back down in the traction zone. So we will see what Cone does here. Cone had a bit more pace than Intersport after Intersport made his pit stop. Was consistently around half a second quicker per lap. Now, whether Intersport can make something happen here, I do not know. Colin Dodger has left his box, rolling down the pit lane now, and it's going to be very close between these two drivers. Intersport will have the run going into turn 1, as Colin now leaves the pit lane, and Intersport is going to be right there, but close, but no cigar for Intersport. So Colin Dodger makes the overcut work,
Oh, and Jeff loses it.
And Intersport loses the rear in turn 3, and that might have lost him any chance of winning this race.
Might have. We'll see if he can catch up or not. As don't forget, Cone will definitely have a shorter last stop than Intersport. Both will short fuel the cars, and I doubt either will take tires. Drive the Guard is in for his final stop of the race. Will likely take a full tank from here. Indeed, he does. Koala, who will not make it to the end from here, on the front straight, will get past Guard by a healthy margin. Warrior is just now coming into turn 5 and will likely not pass Guard now, as Guard is moving.
Daniel has been losing time hand over fist here. Once Texas got past, Daniel has been making mistake after mistake. Texas now 40 seconds almost ahead of Daniel.
And yeah, Texas is 40 seconds ahead. But Texas might have to stop for a splash of fuel. He's likely going to pit this lap. He might try to stretch it one more. That's very brave if he does. I see him pitting this lap. Can an LMP1 car do a full hour on a tank of fuel?
Well, he's going another lap here. But, I mean, he's got now a 40-second lead to Daniel. Now, Daniel, his strategy here, which we know Toyota in real life, they short pit a lot so that they can then have shorter pit stops throughout the race in real life in WEC, and that might be what he can go for here. He might save a few seconds and fuel here, but if Texas can't make it to the end and Daniel finds it in himself to not take tires at this pit stop, Daniel might just come out in front of Texas once Texas takes this splash. And that is assuming that Daniel keeps it clean for the rest of this race, but his pace has fallen away here towards the end of this stint. I mean, he lost almost another 3 seconds to Texas last lap alone.
As Texas does come into the pits with a quarter of a liter left in the car, cutting it very close, gets it down to the pit speed limiter well beforehand.
So Texas, it's going to be close for him as a driver also comes into the pit lane with around the same amount of fuel, about a quarter of a liter on 0.3 liters. So the Ligier Honda driver and the Porsche 919 driver in the pit lane for maybe their penultimate stop, maybe their final stop. The world may never know. We'll know in about 50 minutes time. As
indeed.
As Dale is coming up on Guard now to lap him, so Guard made some sort of a mistake last lap and lost around 10 seconds. Well, never mind, he pit, didn't he? Did he pit? He didn't pit last lap.
No, he pitted 3 or 4 laps ago. Again,
yeah, so Guard made some sort of a mistake last lap.
I believe he did. Last lap
lost around 10-ish seconds.
Yeah, his last lap was exactly 10 seconds off Koala's.
Yeah, so Dale right on the back of Guard to lap him now. After showing very strong pace at the beginning of this race, the pace in that number 63 has fallen off significantly compared to his teammate in the number 64 car. jump back to the battle in LMP2 and Cone. Just like in the first stint, once Cone has some sort of a lead, he's not going to give it back. And he is pulling away. He was around a half a second faster last lap than Intersport. And the gap is growing. It's around 5.5 seconds right now. We'll check back in on it in a few laps time, see if it's going up or down. But bar any mistakes, I believe Cone Dodger might just have this one in the bag.
Yeah, fuel definitely playing a bigger factor in this race than it does other races due to the fact that the long front straight, and honestly, it's a pretty throttle intensive track. You're full throttle a lot of the way through the lap here. For instance, at Spa you have a lot of medium and high speed flowing corners where you're half or quarter throttle. To where here you're either braking or you're on throttle pretty much the entire lap.
Yeah, and another big thing about this track is the long corners here. You can't really brake because you'll lock up the tires, and you can't really accelerate because there's not a big enough gap between the double apex corners. So really, you have a lot of engine braking, a lot of coasting on this track through the corners compared to some circuits where you're either on the brakes or on the loud pedal. And while obviously coasting isn't using up as much fuel as being on the throttle, the engine braking will be making the engine temperatures just slightly warmer, which will then make the engines less efficient. So we'll see how this turns out in terms of fuel consumption. I know for sure that that the old Audi LMP1 it would not have survived a two-stop. She would have needed a splash and go.
Definitely for sure. Looking at Texas, Daniel's definitely going to need to pit again. He's only got 15 liters remaining. About a 1 sector advantage over Texas. Just under a sector now, actually, as Texas pushing hard to catch back up. Only 24 seconds behind.
Texas is easily going to make it to the end. Remember how we were talking about a liter a minute earlier?
Yeah, and he didn't quite make that damage. He pitted with 57 minutes left. However, he should be able to make it from there. If honestly, especially with Daniel taking a full service pit stop left, all he needs to do is save a little bit of fuel. Just run a solid pace. He doesn't need to lift off, you know what I mean. He doesn't need to slow his pace down. Just roll out of the throttle 100 yards before he brakes. Maybe short shift 500 RPM earlier, and he'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Texas has done a very good job fighting back in this race after that incident he had earlier with the GTE, the Corvette of Dale, as he is now in a Corvette sandwich through the starting into the final sector, but gets around both of them perfectly okay. But after that incident between Texas and Dale, Daniel did take a bit of an advantage there, but after a string of mistakes from the Toyota driver, Texas has been played back into the race for the win here in LMPH.
So the field is pretty spread out right now.
Yeah, and sadly, we only have 9 cars on track here compared to our normal numbers. A few drivers were unable to make the show here today, including myself, for a bunch of different reasons. But hopefully, next time out will be one of the crown jewels at Daytona. The 3 hours of Daytona. It will be a full day-night cycle, just like in real life. So it'll be a lot of fun. Wow. Watching Daniel shred through the P2 of Driver and the Ford of Koala there. Very interesting to watch.
So, Intersport not really looking like he's gaining time or losing time on cone, as they're rapidly approaching their final pit window. Opens in about 10 minutes. Daniel, on the other hand, is very rapidly approaching his, as he has about 4 laps left before he needs to pit.
Yeah, this has been a very interesting race so far.
Indeed. Fuel definitely a much bigger factor than other races. Also consistency. As the GTE field was more or less who had the car beneath them to stick with it. Qual is down to 37 liters. Guard has not been able to catch him at all. Warrior not also really able to make any progress. So it looks like Dale will have, even with his final splash for fuel, will have the win in GTE should anything happen, with Guard finishing in second, which I believe that's exactly how they qualified. 64 over 63, 69 over 67.
Yep.
In LMP1 with Texas, and Texas is using exactly a liter a minute, as about 8 minutes ago he had 2 liters to spare. He still has 2 liters to spare. So
and
Texas
gradually closing the gap between himself and Daniel.
Yeah, I think he's closed in about a second in that 8-minute period. So not much, but doing what he needs to do. That's the thing.
Driver now in the pit lane for what I presume is his final stop. He's got around 60 liters in the car. He's just coming in for his splash now, I would presume.
Indeed. Fills the car to 65 liter limit. 75 liter limit, excuse me. And indeed, pulls away in second gear. Interestingly. Keep the wheel spin down. And he will go a lap down to his class leaders.
Yeah,
and he has retired.
And so ex-driver accepting defeat here, as he has been put a lap down by both of his rivals in LMP2. So ex-driver will be classified in third position for the LMP2 field.
So, 42 minutes remaining. Daniel has 1.6 liters left. In fact, he's going to be cutting it very close getting back to pit lane. So, Texas will inherit the lead. Still has just under 2 liters in his pocket. Cone still leads over Intersport, both of them getting ready to make their final pit stop. Dale has 3/4 of a lap still over Warrior, but has let his teammate drive the guard. Warrior still chugging along in 4th place in class, waiting for any opportunities to present themselves, especially considering his teammate needs to pit. And honestly, at this rate, Warrior might need a splash of fuel damage.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it is for him. It depends on if he saves fuel or not. I mean, it's not really going to affect his race too much because, I mean, guard's filled to the end, if I'm not mistaken. And Warrior
guard is good.
Warrior's not going to make up that gap anyways. So Daniel does make it to the pit lane with 0.2 liters left. So just like his companion in LMP1H.
And Texas is coming in for a splash.
So Texas taking this opportunity while Daniel is in the pit lane to also do his splash as well. Interesting there from Texas.
Yeah, did not think he was going to make it to the end. Daniel is out and moving. Texas taking 14 liters of fuel. 15 liters, not a full tank.
He comes right back out. So,
and interestingly enough, has exactly 1 liter more than what Daniel put in the car. So the race is on for LMP1. 9 seconds separate the two. Not how we thought the fuel strategy was going to play out, but we do have a race on our hands, folks.
Absolutely. This is going to be a fun one. Now, did Daniel take tires or not? That is a very good question, I believe, because Texas was not stopped long enough to take tires.
I don't think he did. I know Texas, I know Texas did not take tires. And Texas gained 10 seconds on Daniel in that pit sequence. Daniel took 50 liters of fuel. Texas took 15 liters of fuel, which to me is about a 10-second difference.
Okay. Now, how much time does it take for tires? Because
you're asking the wrong person. I have no clue in LMP1. In GTE, it's about 15 to 20 seconds.
That's such a tough decision for Daniel to make, to not take tires there. Because he had, like right now he has around an 8-second gap to Texas behind. And he loses a little bit of that right now behind the Corvette. But he has around an 8-second gap, give or take, to Texas behind. It could be an 8-second gap in the other direction. The thing that would have been the limiting factor is Daniel on whether he believes with new tires he'd be able to catch up to Texas. Texas has shown more pace throughout this entire race than Daniel for the most part, especially towards the end of stints. Daniel on older tires, I don't know exactly how stable his car will be.
Texas has already gained 2 seconds on Daniel. Now, admittedly, Texas does have 3 lap cars to pass between him and Daniel. 2 lap cars, both of the Corvettes, which Daniel will catch them in a much better spot. Pardon me. Let me restart. Texas just got past one of the Corvettes, will get past the other Corvette in a much better spot than Daniel caught them. Daniel getting past Intersport, heading into turn 1. Cone at the beginning of the pit window. Again, 37.5 minutes is what you need to do on a 4-stop strategy. These cars can do more than 37.5 minutes. So, Cone looks like he's filling the car up and is the first to make his last stop in the LMP2 race. Now, will Intersport stay out, try to do the overcut similar to how Cone did to him, or will he pit? And it looks like Cone's taking tires as well. So
that is a very Cone
tires?
strategy. If Cone didn't take if Cone didn't take tires, that is a Cone strategy. Or I mean, if he did take tires, excuse me.
It
that
looks
is a
like
Cone
he
strategy.
did, and I would very much expect Intersport to not take tires, regardless of what he's
going
done
to do
previous
the
stops.
opposite of whatever Cone does.
Indeed.
If Cone took tires, Jeff will not take tires. If Cone didn't take tires, Jeff will take tires. The only real strategy call Jeff has here is to do the opposite of Cone. Because if he does the same thing, he will not be able to catch up.
Exactly. Does he come in this lap? No, he will stay out until he runs out of fuel. So that is another thing different to what Cone is doing. Texas down to almost the 5-second mark.
We're going to have a race on our hands in multiple classes here. Right now they're racing indirectly in LMP2, and in the closing stages of this race they're going to be racing directly in LMP1.
Dale, the Whale, the Cuddly Koala, Warrior all need to make pit stops in GTE. Guard is the only driver not needing a pit stop in the white bannered number 63. Texas has hit that magical 5-second mark. That's usually when you can start seeing the car ahead, get that blood in the water.
Now I'm going to be interested on what the lap times are here, comparing Intersport and Cone Dodger. I will be very interested to see what Cone's first lap out of the pit lane is here. If it is competitive enough to really be able to hold on to his position compared to Intersport, as he goes a bit wide there.
Speaking
coming out of turn 5.
Lap times, Texas just took 1.5 seconds out of Daniel that lap.
Texas has a lot of pace here. He is flying.
Indeed, this is just a course that suits Texas's driving style. He enjoys this. It's not as stop-starty as something like a street circuit would be. However, it is just very, for being so stop-starty, it has great flow and great undulation with these elevation changes. Some drivers like that, some drivers don't. And it seems like Daniel in the twitchy Toyota just cannot get a grip on this track.
And the biggest thing about this track is you have to have really good aero balance around this, as one of the Fords goes kind of wide there in the final corner. You have to have really good aero balance around this circuit. And the way the cars are set up here is quite interesting, the variance that you can have in each class with each type of car. You can set up your car to be very stiff and rely a bit more on mechanical grip, or you can set up your car to be a lot less stiff, allow the body to move around a little bit more, the chassis to take in a little bit more aerodynamic effect for this middle sector. But with the softer car, you'll be slower in the first and final sector. So it is a compromise that you have to make around this style of a circuit, and that's what makes this circuit so fun, not just to set up a car for, but also to drive.
Indeed, definitely one of my favorite circuits that we have on the calendar this season. And it's just a track is a great track when it's fun to race around, but it's also fun to just hot lap. and this track is definitely one of those tracks.
Yeah, I mean, this is a circuit that should get a whole lot more recognition in the real world of motorsports. I mean, there should be major events here in Portimao every single year.
Thankfully, it is getting its shot due to the coronavirus. F1 will be here later in the year, and it'll be very interesting to see how these cars take on Algarve, which, again, I'm not a huge F1 historian, but if I recall correctly, F1 has never been here.
The only time F1 cars have ever been in Portimao was at the end of 2008 and the start of 2009, whenever McLaren brought a test car here that had a 2009 nose and a 2008 rear wing. Basically a preview of the 2017 regulations that we didn't know of yet, obviously. But that is the only time an F1 car has ever been around this circuit, and according to their test driver at the time, it was a magnificent driving experience around this circuit. As Intersport is now leaving the pit lane, he most certainly did not take tires. So
absolutely did not, as Cone is just now entering the final corner down the hill with his lights off.
This is going to be close.
Up the hill on the front straight. Intersport off the pit limiter now. They're going to be side by side heading into turn one.
Side here into turn one. Intersport will have it, and Daniel runs right into the back of Intersport there, and Texas having to go off the road to avoid the incident.
And that has given Texas the lead in LMP1, and it has given Cone the lead in LMP2, both of which now being chased down by damaged red, white, and black cars.
So now
Daniel almost losing it out of turn 5.
Yeah, Daniel is going to be struggling here from here on out. Now he's going to have a pretty decent amount of damage on the front of that car. That was a pretty heavy impact. Hopefully Intersport nor Daniel have too much damage to their cars. Intersport to the rear, Daniel to the front. But we'll only really be able to tell just by if their pace drops off at all.
Which, I mean, it could be tires, it could be traffic, or it could be damage, or it could be a combination of all three, but Intersport has already dropped off 2 seconds off the back of Cone. So that battle that we were looking forward to in LMP2, not looking great right now.
And coming through the penultimate corner there, he lost the rear just a bit there on acceleration. So I believe he's going to have a little bit of damage here, which is very unfortunate because both the battle for LMP1 and the battle for LMP2 have sort of been spoiled by that incident as Cone runs wide yet again in turn 1. It's been spoiled a bit by that incident. I didn't really have a good angle there, but it looked like Intersport came out of the pit lane, and I was expecting to see Cone on his outside, but instead the first car I saw was Daniel. So Daniel, I assume, went to the inside of Cone trying to get around Cone and misjudged the speed of Intersport, who was coming out of the pit lane on a tighter line going through the apex of turn 1, and ended up in a collision.
Indeed.
first corner again.
One more time, and he will be getting a warning for sure. Doesn't look like Dan or Intersport have really been too affected now. Texas and Cone both could have just dropped into a pace now, be holding that 3-second gap that they both have as they work their way through GTE traffic respectively.
If there's one thing that I have learned about both Cone and Texas is they have one thing in common. Whenever they're leading a race, they're still going to drive 100% because they don't want to win by 3 seconds. They want to win by 30. That's definitely a trait that Cone Dodger has, and it is something that that I have learned about Texas as well in these endurance races. He doesn't slow down whenever he's out front. He is all the time full tilt, because you never know what might happen.
Oops. Yeah, Texas and Cone both very I don't want to say hard drivers. They always give 100%. Because honestly, mistakes happen when you change how you drive. If you start pushing less, that's when you start. If you're braking maybe a little bit earlier, you don't put as much brake pressure into the throttle, and that's when you outbrake yourself. To where if you just hit your marks lap after lap after lap, get that rhythm. Maybe not 100%, maybe not qualifying laps, but that 90 to 95% solid lap every lap within like half a second of your best lap. Get that consistency going, and you'll be golden.
As Guard looks like he comes through to take away P2 in GTE, as Koala is in the pit lane.
Indeed. Koala should be out before his teammate Warrior comes by.
Cone and Texas are very similar, but very much opposites. Cone is a very aggressive driver, will go for any gap, will fight you as hard as he wants to, no matter what. And Texas, on the other hand, is like the complete opposite. If he feels like he did anything wrong in any sort of a scenario, he will immediately back out, give you the position back, whatever he might need to do to make sure that he is brought across as a clean driver and nothing else.
It seems like everyone's kind of just settling down. The only two positions really up for grab is the battle we're following in LMP2, and LMP1, the gap's a little bit farther. It has ballooned up to 7 seconds.
And I mean, I don't think this battle for LMP2 is over here. This gap is plenty close enough where if they meet some interesting traffic, or if Cone makes any sort of a small mistake here, Intersport can be right up onto his rear diffuser.
Indeed. Actually, talking about traffic, all of the GTE cars right now are in the same half lap of each other, as the closest one behind them is in turn 5, and the closest one ahead of them is entering the final corner now. So they'll have honestly, they'll probably only catch one more piece of lap traffic with 20 minutes remaining.
Which would be nice for Cone Dodger's case and not so nice for Intersport.
Indeed, Intersport looking for more lap traffic as the shadows grow along here at Algarve.
So currently it's looking like Texas, bar any sort of mistake or incident, including him, looks like he might have the LMP1 victory wrapped up, and the same thing goes out to Dale. And in GTE, looks like he might have the win wrapped up in his class, but this battle between LMP2, anything could happen.
Indeed. I mean, just in that short little time, I think in 2 minutes, the gap in LMP1's ballooned up another 2 seconds. So.
Yeah, with traffic and whatnot, yeah.
LMP2, seems like this is the last chance we have to change the finishing order before the end of the race. 19 minutes. Texas just now heading into turn 2, so it'll probably be about another 15 laps. Should be about 104 to 106 lap race.
A lot of laps. Yeah, and it looks like Jeff might be closing slightly on Cone, but they're more or less the same pace at this stage of the race. So, I mean, I don't expect Cone to make any sort of terrible mistakes here to lose enough time for Intersport to be able to catch up to him.
And Damage has lagged out of the race and race lobby. Gap between the two LMP2 leaders is pretty much staying status quo. As sorry folks, my allergies are messing up a little bit on me. Under 12 minutes left. And the lead in LMP1 has ballooned up to 26 seconds now, as Daniel's struggling at this track. LMP2 battles up to 5 seconds, and again, in GTE, it's still status quo. Happening anytime soon. Under 5 minutes remaining. Still pretty much same old, same old. I hate to say this, but I might lag out at any moment here. Wi-Fi is very slow all of a sudden. Minutes remaining, and it does look like we're about to get $104 laps in. Should be 3 to go this time by. Checking on everyone's fuel. Texas is good. Dan is good. Conan's good. Intersport very good. Dale's a little close. Should be good. Guard is actually quite close. Qual is good and Warrior is good. Where is Texas and where is Guard? Texas will likely not catch Guard. Guard is smart. He's going to drop back. He still has 3 laps to go with 8.3 liters. He's going to be cutting it close. Headlights on that Porsche getting ever brighter as we get later in the day. Onto the front straight, and it will be white flag next time by, if I recall correctly. Won't be final lap this time by. Let's see. Texas will be close to passing Guard. So even if this is not the final lap for Texas, Guard should be good to go. He'll only have 1 more lap at most. With 6.5 liters left, he should be fine. And he's the closest one on fuel. Under 15 seconds. And Texas comes to take the checkered flag. That is the checkered flag. And takes a dominant win at Algarve, even after being taken out by the GTE winner. Next car to cross the line will be Warrior. Drive the Guard officially in second. Not Warrior, excuse me. Koala in third. So the 63 will gain big on the 67. Dan will bring home honors in second place. Warrior will bring it home in last. And Cone will take the win in LMP2. Intersport, solid second place run in LMP2, with Dale being the last person to take the checkered. There are your final results. 103 laps completed. Porsche, Orica, and Chevrolet are your winners, with driver retiring approximately 2/3 of the way through the race. Have a good night and join us in 2 weeks for Daytona.